welcome back to another episode of Sky High Outdoors. It's going to be a short episode. I received some feedback from my previous video of the shallow water red fishing in the winter on exactly how I did that, what tackle I used, and the type of baits. I realized that not everyone is as familiar with some of these tackle and fishing techniques as I am, so I wanted to go into some more detail and show you guys exactly what I did and what I used to catch those fish. So the first thing I'm going to go into is the actual tackle I used to fish for these shallow water reds. If you can remember, if you watched my previous video, you found out that we kind of realized that the tackle we were using was too heavy and therefore creating too big of a disturbance in the water. And so I did some research and I literally was trying to find the smallest weight I could find to minimize that splash when I casted, and I ended up finding the 1/16. If you can get that, there we go. 1/16 ended up being the smallest, and it does a perfect job of minimizing that splash, and it has really proved to be a successful hook. I've gotten some other weights that I'm going to use when summertime rolls around and the fishing becomes a little bit different, but for now I'm sticking with this one. It's the best one I found for this particular type of finesse fishing, and that's shallow water. I'll go into how I hook the baits onto as well. So for the actual bait artificial lure that I use, honestly, I do not have a preference as to brand. I have a preference as to the color I use. In the winter time, fall time, I generally tend to use gold colors. So the one I used this past time was this one right here, the Saltwater Assassin. This is the Mama's 14 karat. It looks like a mullet or a little minnow. It has gold and silver flakes in it, which, you know, I like that. The reason being is because silver flakes require more light in order to make that shine. Gold requires less light to make that shine. So this is a good all-around color because it will work in different water situations. But other options I would use something like this Z-Man. It's the blue crab. This doesn't work on the owner twist lock, and I haven't gotten able to work. It doesn't go on very well. It's very hard to get started on the actual twist part of the owner hook. But I have used the new penny Saltwater Assassin. It's, you know, a gold color again. It's gonna work. And I have my Berkeley gulps in a bag because they're leaking, but I've used the new penny color, which is the exact same pretty much as this, just in the 3-inch shrimp size. And I've used the nuclear chicken color as well, and I caught on, I believe, both of them. So I think ultimately these fish are gonna eat as long as you present the baits in the correct way. And so I'll get into that next. Okay, so the first part of making sure and getting these fish to eat is presenting it in your bait in the correct way, and a big part of that is knowing how to rig this particular hook. And so the owner is great because it has this little point right here, this pin. So you just stick that bad boy right there in the middle of this shad here, and you just twist it right on. Just keep twisting it on till you reach about right there, and then you're about halfway done now. Now you take this kind of bend it, maneuver it how you need to. Make sure you want to make sure your hook goes through the straight through the back of that bait right there, just to make sure you don't have any make sure it doesn't look weird in the water while you're working it. A lot of people leave the hook actually in the bait itself, but that's incorrect, because you can lose you could miss fish doing that. And you see I'm a little bit off there, but ultimately I think that would be okay. You can go back a little bit so you don't stretch this thing as much. But I mean, this is what I was doing on Saturday with great success. And you see it's kind of streamlined, so you want that pin is lined up like right where the hook starts to curve. So you see that right there, we're good. And this hook is going to be exposed, so when that fish bites, boom, right there, he's gonna get hooked. And this is a bass hook, so it's fun because you get to set the hook like you would with a bass. But that's basically it. Like I said, I used the other color, but this color looks really good, and I probably will use it at some point. But yeah, that's how you're gonna rig it up. We'll go into actually how you work it and what my rod looks like. Alright guys, so now we're gonna get into what my rod setup looks like. Okay, so I go with the 3000 sized pin, but more importantly than the reel itself is the rod. So the rod is going to allow you to do all the work when it's fighting the fish. So it's important to have a good rod. My opinion, the best rod for inshore fishing to handle everything that's under the sun when it comes to inshore, reds, flounder, trout, is a medium heavy rod. My preferred length is 7 foot. The action, I want it to be fast. So the medium heavy is the actual power of this part of the rod right here, how hard it is to bend that. The action is the rod tip. So I like it to be fast, that way I can feel things, but I want it to have enough backbone and power to handle some of those redfish that we encounter. The second most important thing is your line. As you can see here, this is not leader. I have straight braid on here. A lot of people, they decide to use leader, and that's fine. I use leader on some of my rods, but I haven't seen a huge benefit to it. I haven't lost any fish because of not having leader, I think. I don't know. I use I think this is 15 or 20 pound braid. It's very thin. And that's another thing, is that I want it to be thinner, that way I can have a better, I can cast better, and I feel like it works better when I'm actually working the bait, especially in these shallow conditions. I just prefer it. And none of these fish we're catching are over or even close to 15 or 20 pounds. They're, about 8 pounds or so, because all these are like slot reds. They're literally, they look like clones of each other. They're all basically the same, same size. And so I just, I'd put leader on there, but I have it on some, I don't have it on some poles. So, to me it doesn't really matter. But I also have this clip on here, and the reason for that is because, simply put, my girlfriend got into fishing, and it's a lot easier for her and me to switch baits without having to retie every single time. So that's a little trick I use. I have not seen it really affect my fishing. Like I said, the line itself is so thin, and the water we fish in is generally brown. So it's hard to see anyway, so it's not like we're fishing. You know, if I was fishing the Keys like in my previous videos, yeah, we had leaders because the water is crystal clear. It's literally like, it's clear blue water. So yeah, you should probably use a leader at that point. But like I said, fishing in the Charleston area, the water is very brown due to all the sediment and tannins in the water. So, you know, it's not as important in my opinion, but it's not going to hurt you if you put a leader on your rod. And lastly, I'm going to talk about how I actually work my bait. So generally speaking, when I see a school of reds, it's kind of like a split-second decision, just depending on if I've run up on them or if they've come to me. If I've run up to them, they're probably spooked. And so a lot of the times you have to anticipate their direction and cast accordingly in front of them. So when they come across that bait, they bite. I've had other times where I could tell they were going to the right, but there was a dead end, so they ultimately would have to turn around. And I literally just casted right behind the school and waited. That time I had a minnow one actually, and I just waited, sat there and jigged it a little bit, and they bit it. So a lot of it is to do with your cast placement with these shallow water reds in the wintertime. Another aspect of it is how fast you're working it, or how slow rather. Honestly, you can't work it slow enough, to be honest with you. Literally, just, you should wait at least 10 to 15 seconds in between your twitches. So, you know, cast it, tighten up your line, I sit there and feel for a couple of seconds at least, because, you know, they might have bitten it on the way down. But then jig it a few times and just wait for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And you might feel a strike in that time, and you feel your line tighten up, and you can set the hook accordingly. But like I said, on the reel back, yeah, just slow it down. Basically slow it down, I mean, almost to the point where you think you're going too slow. I'm telling you, these fish, they're moving slow. They are a little bit warmer if you are in the correct spot, depending on the conditions. You know, if you're taking the sunlight, the wind, water depth, your bottom color all into consideration, and you're in the correct area, they will be a little bit more active. But ultimately, it is winter, they are cold, so you gotta work that bait slow. So work that thing slow, and you'll get strikes. And when you do, it's so fun to reel in these fish in the shallow water with a bunch of other fish around, and you just can't wait to get your bait back in the water. Anyways, that's, I think, about to wrap it up here with this video. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this weekend. My buddy Berto from Florida is coming down. He wants to catch some slot reds in the same type of conditions. Hopefully the rain holds up for us. But we're looking at a great tide about midday, low tide, midday. So we got the perfect tide for it. We're gonna go back out there and see if we can catch a bunch of slot reds using these same exact techniques that I talked about today. So until next time, tight lines and good tides, people. Peace. Stay. Sit. Stay. Good boy. Attaboy. Attaboy. Attaboy.